Hello everyone, the Fysetc spider board is finally here and I decided to make a quick unboxing and overview video of this. And after that we will install this on my Voron 2 in the Voron 2 series, and I'll probably make a review video of this after that as well. But today we're just taking a look at the box and what's inside and do an overview of the board as well. I normally wouldn't bother showing you the box, but I think the artwork on this is pretty cool, so yeah, that's why I wanted to show this. So here it is, and this is the backside. You'll notice that there is the Voron Design logo on this. Apparently the Voron Design team worked with Fysetc on this one, so basically Fysetc showed the Voron Design team what they have and just asked for opinion, and apparently they actually listened and changed a few things based on that, so that's pretty cool. And you'll also notice that on the side, on the sticker, you'll see that I have the 446 version. That is the MCU on this. So there are two options, the STM32F446 and STM32F407, if I remember correctly. Functionally, they should be basically the same, but the reason there are two versions is because there is the chip shortage and, well, they're using whatever they can get. But for our application, it really shouldn't matter. The processing will happen on the Raspberry Pi anyway, and both of the MCUs have the same pins, so it, again, functionally it shouldn't matter at all. But the one I have is the 446 version, which is the first patch. I think the second patch will be the 407 version, and yeah, we'll see from there. But anyway, let's get inside. Now, I didn't do this. This is the customs guide. Whatever, everything inside is in one piece. I did check. So here we go. So what we have here is the spider board. We'll take a closer look at this in a sec. A USB-C cable, because this has a USB-C connector instead of a USB micro B or something like that. And drivers. This board was sent to me by Fysetc, so I don't really know which ones are included in my case, but I'm assuming these are 2209s. We'll take a look at them in a second. Well, I guess let's just start with this because the board is more important. And the drivers look like they are 2209s. Just for comparison, this is how the Big 3 Tech ones look. And the Big 3 Tech ones, I think, had the same blue heatsink, by the way. I think I swapped them to the black one myself. But yeah, in terms of the pins, they are pretty much the same. So I think they are intercompatible. So if you have the Big 3 Tech 2209s lying around, you should be able to use it with Spiderboard as well, which is nice. But it's also nice that I got these, because I am suspecting that one of my Big 3 Tech drivers are somewhat dead and it's frying the boards. I talked about it in the V2 episode a few episodes ago, not the last one. But yeah, it's nice that these were included so I can be sure that they're working properly. But now let's take a look at the Spiderboard itself. So here's the board. I went ahead and plugged in all the step sticks and did the jumper configuration as well, but as I said, I'm going to only do an overview today. So again, here it is. It's this gorgeous matte black finish on this board. I really like the look of this. And you can also see the Voron logo on the board as well on the back side with the Fysetc logo. On the back side you do get the pinouts, which is also pretty nice, and the spider logo. But there was a horrible QC sticker here that I removed. Please don't use those stickers, that just makes your product look terrible. But yeah, as I said, I removed that. But yeah, let's just get to the main deal. So yeah, anyway, let's take a look at the features on the front. There are 8 stepper drivers, as I mentioned before. Well, I think I mentioned them. And as I said, I use TMC2209s. You can use whatever you want with this. This supports SPI step 6, it supports UART step 6, or even just the generic cheap Allegro stuff. It supports all of them. And you'll notice that there are 9 stepper motor connectors. That is so you can connect 2 Z motors. That is something you want in certain configurations for certain boards, but not with a Voron. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're mainly interested in a Voron. So you can just jump them together. And moving on, here are all of the terminal connectors. So the power input, this is where you connect your 24 volts, the bed input and the bed output, so you can use a different voltage for your bed, but don't use this with AC. And then 3 extruder heater outputs, E2, E1, E0. Now that's for extruders, that's for the hot end heater obviously, but you can also connect fans to that, you can connect LEDs to that, you can connect whatever you want with that. That's also thanks to the flexibility of Clipper. Both the power input and the bed input are fused at 20 amps, which is pretty nice. SKR boards and duet boards use these style car fuses as well, and they are fairly easy to source if you blow them up, and they add a nice protection to the circuit if just in case you need that. And you can see all of the connectors here. So these are the thermistor inputs. There is also something special about these as well. These have a very high accuracy pull-up resistor, which means you can use PT1000 thermistors with that. There is some misinformation out there because of mistaken wiring diagram that says you can use a PT100. You can't use a PT100 directly wired in here. You can still use a Max31A65 though, like I've done before, but you can directly use a PT1000, which is also fairly good, and that's thanks to the high accuracy pull-up resistors. You have all of the you have 3 fan connectors here, and you'll notice the jumpers here that lets you individually select the voltage you want. So I should have mentioned this already. This has a 5 volt and a 12 volt buck converter built in, and they are fairly high current as well. This means, in theory anyway, you don't need the 5 volt or the 12 volt power supply that you have for the Voron, or at least the 5 volt. Some people don't have the 12 volt, I do. But in this case, assuming they work at the rated current, you really shouldn't need those. You can get away with just a 24 volt power supply, which is awesome. And yeah, that's thanks to the buck converters, and that's why you have 3 options: 24 volt, 12 volt, and 5 volt. That's the order they're in, but definitely you can double check from here when you're wiring. Don't just obviously do your wiring based on this video. It also can accept 5 volt from USB if you wish, just like many other boards, and there's a jumper for that here. And here we have a whole bunch of RGB LED connectors. These are also pretty nice because you can select the voltage here again, 12 volt or 24 volt, and yeah, you can see the voltage options in the back, 12 and 24. And once you select them, obviously you can control RGB LEDs with these, and you can also control fans with these, which is also pretty nice. And if you want 5 volt RGB, you can see that it's also built into this board as well, so you can control those as well. And for the limit switch connectors, these are your standard 3-pin limit switch connectors, but one thing I forgot to mention, which is why I'm doing this as a voiceover, is if you see the bank of pin headers above the limit switch connectors, the pins named diag, those are for sensorless homing from your TMC driver or virtual end stop in Clipper. And in the SKR 1.4 boards, you had to cut the diag pin on the step stick itself because there were no jumpers that you could remove to disable this. But just like on the SKR 1.3 and a lot of other boards as well, that is an option on this board, which is very nice. And if you also look at the back side of this board, this is another thing I noticed later. Around where the limit switches are, you'll notice pads named 3.3 volts, 24 volts, and 5 volts. Some of them are 3.3 and 24, the others are 3.3 and 5. This is for if you're using a powered limit switch of some kind, and for some reason 3.3 volt doesn't work for that limit switch. You can cut the trace between 3.3 and the center one and jump it to the 5 volt or 24 volt if you need to. This is a very niche use case, but if you have a need for this, well, it's nice to have this as an option so you can cut the traces and jump them. And for the probe connector, there is a built-in Schottky diode. I don't think it's a BAT85, but it should serve the same purpose, so you don't even need the BAT85 diode, which is pretty nice because it's easy to forget. And yeah, it's nice to know that the protection is built into this board. And even if you have one in your wiring harness, by the way, it doesn't hurt to use 2 Schottky diodes, but again, if you forget them or if you don't want to bother, they're built in, so that's pretty nice. And I forgot to show this, but these pins let you select the voltage for the probes, so 5 volts or 24 volts, you can just select the jumper using these pins. And here you can see the USB-C connector. That's how my unit should. But if you look at the silk screen here, you can see that this is also that large footprint for USB-B. So I don't know if they plan to change this in the future or what, but yeah, for now I think they'll ship with USB-C, which is pretty nice. And these pinouts are for USB as well, so you can just connect them here if you don't want a cable sticking out from the side. There's also the UART option if you don't want to use USB, which I'll get to in a bit. And this is a reset button. And there are the auxiliary power connectors here and here. The ones here are 24 volt, the ones here are 12 volt and 24 volts, so half and half. And that lets you connect anything auxiliary that you might want to connect, like I don't know, non-speed controlled fan or anything like that. It just makes wiring a lot easier. You don't have to run wires to your power supply. And in case of 12 volts, if you don't have a 12 volt power supply, well, again, you can just grab them from here. So again, that's pretty nice too. And now let's get to this. You'll notice that it says Pi Power and UART, and that's also a very nice feature that's built into this board. You can power your Raspberry Pi directly from here. As I said, this has a 5 volt buck converter built in. So as I said, you can just wire it here and connect it to your Raspberry Pi, and you can also run the UART between the Raspberry Pi and here, and which that means is you don't need a USB cable either. All you will have is a ribbon cable of sorts running from here to your Raspberry Pi. This will power your Raspberry Pi and do the connection, so you don't need the USB and you don't need the 5 volt power supply, and it's overall a much cleaner setup, so that's a very nice feature of this as well. And here are your expansion 1 and expansion 2 connectors. These are so that you can connect your displays, for example the Mini 12864 or whatever else display you want to connect that relies on those two ribbon cables. You can connect them here. There is also this connector. This is actually a CAN bus, but I don't think this has a discrete CAN bus chip on this, so I think you still have to use one of those modules. I'll double check that, but I think that's the case. And it just makes it easier for you to wire your CAN bus stuff, but you still need that. Don't just directly connect this to the rest of the CAN bus. Don't make that mistake. These bottom 4 pin headers, they are for the I2C bus, and the top ones are for just programming the STM chip. So if you have to do that sort of stuff, it's nice that they're available very easily on the board as well. So that's also a new nice touch. So I think I went over everything on this board, so that's going to be it for this overview. As I said, I will be installing this on my Boron 2 Doom Cube, so stay tuned for that for the Boron 2 series. And I might also make a review video of this after using this board, but honestly I'm not 100% sure what I can cover in a review video. Print quality or anything like that isn't going to matter, especially with a clipper setup, but I guess I could go over the pros and cons and stuff like that, but I don't know right now. But I am considering making a review video of this as well if I can come up with something. But as I said, that's all I wanted to cover in this video. If you like what you see and if you're interested in this board, there are purchase links in the description below. Keep in mind that this is still produced in batches, so I think the next ship date will be May 20th or something like that. And I think it's fair to remind you that the last time they did this, they shipped a week later, so be prepared for this to take a while. Probably it will arrive at sometime in June. But if you like what you see, as I said, the links are in the description below, and if you're watching this in the future, well, the sport is probably out anyway, so there shouldn't be the case, but that's the case for now. But again, as I said, that's it for this video, so thanks to Fysetc for sending this board. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please leave me a like down below, and thanks for watching.